bottom line was the old directors were fanatics about.
Everyone knows Arnold Schwarzenegger as the unstoppable action icon, the 7-time Mr. Olympia, the Hollywood Titan, the governor of California. But how many people know he once slept on a cold wooden floor, terrified of a father whose anger echoed through every room? Most people think Arnold was simply blessed, but nothing about his rise was easy. In this motivational success story, you'll see how he went from a broken boy in post-war Austria to an unshakable global legend. Before the world ever heard his name, there was a moment that carved itself into Arnold's mind forever. The night he realized no one was coming to save him. He was barely a teenager when it happened. The Austrian winter was brutal that year, the kind of cold that crept into the bones. Arnold lay on the hard wooden floor of his small room, half asleep, when the front door slammed. Heavy footsteps. A voice already slurred with anger. His father, unpredictable, volatile, a storm in human form. Arnold's heartbeat quickened. He held his breath, hoping the footsteps would pass by his door. They didn't. In that moment, he understood something devastating. If he stayed in this house, in this life, he would never escape the cycle of fear, limitation, and silence. That night, while the shouting echoed down the hall, he whispered to himself a sentence he would later repeat in interviews. "I knew I had to get out. I had to build my own world." It wasn't a dramatic movie scene. It was a boy lying on a cold floor, staring at the ceiling, realizing that survival meant dreaming bigger than his surroundings. That moment, quiet, terrifying, unseen by anyone, became the engine that powered everything. The training, the discipline, the obsession, the hunger to rise so far that his past could never pull him back. Before fame, before muscle, before Hollywood, there was only fear, and the decision to outrun it. Arnold Schwarzenegger was born on July 30th, 1947, in Thal, a tiny Austrian village still scarred by the shadow of World War II. Food was scarce. Money was tighter. Jobs were unstable. The air itself seemed heavy with the weight of a country rebuilding from ashes. For most children, Thal was a place where dreams were small because reality was unforgiving. But for Arnold, it was a place he desperately wanted to escape. His father, Gustav Schwarzenegger, was a strict police officer, rigid, old-fashioned, shaped by his own trauma from the war. He believed discipline was the only language worth teaching. Praise was rare. Affection was almost non-existent. And anger was always close. Arnold's mother, Aurelia, was gentle, but overwhelmed by the harshness of the times. She tried to keep the peace, but the imbalance in the family ran deep. From a young age, Arnold noticed something that hurt more than the poverty. His father favored his older brother, Meinhard. Meinhard was everything Gustav admired: disciplined, obedient, talented in school. Arnold, on the other hand, was quieter, more imaginative, and constantly daydreaming about a world far beyond the village borders. The comparisons were constant, the criticism even louder. And the message sank in: you're not enough. Their small home was cold during winter, built of stone that trapped the icy air. Arnold slept on a wooden floor with a thin mattress, waking up each morning before sunrise to help with chores, hauling water, chopping wood, shoveling snow. There were no luxuries, no heater, no privacy, just survival. He often recalled the way the cold felt in those years, not just on the skin but in the heart. "It toughened me," he would later say, "but it also reminded me what I never wanted to be." School wasn't much easier. Children in Thal were raised under the same post-war strictness that hung over the whole country. Teachers ruled with humiliation, and boys were expected to be emotionless, strong, obedient. But Arnold was different. He had an imagination too big for the classroom and a curiosity too wild for small-town life. When he spoke about dreaming of America, the land of possibility, freedom, and ambition, the adults around him laughed. America. For a poor Austrian boy, the idea sounded ridiculous. Yet the seed was planted. The turning point came when he was about 14. A visiting coach introduced Arnold to weightlifting, a foreign, almost mystical practice in that rural village. The moment he entered the small gym, he felt something he had never felt before: control, strength, silence from the chaos of home. In that iron room, the cold didn't matter. The shouting didn't matter. The comparisons, the fear, the doubts, all of it disappeared under the clang of metal. He found a new rhythm. Wake up at dawn. Chores. School. Training. More training. Dreaming. Repeat. He pinned pictures of bodybuilders on his wall. Reg Park, Steve Reeves. Men who had turned muscle into destiny. Arnold didn't just admire them. He studied them. He devoured magazines. He visualized every rep, every pose, every trophy. In a house where he felt unseen, bodybuilding became a way to build a version of himself that no one could ignore. But with that new fire came more friction with his father. Gustav believed bodybuilding was useless, a foolish obsession. And every argument dug the gap between them deeper. Arnold felt alone, misunderstood, and suffocated by a life that felt too small for the size of his ambition. What he didn't know yet was that this loneliness was shaping him, forging the willpower he would need for the battles ahead. Every cold morning, every harsh word, every night lying awake listening for footsteps in the hallway. It was all becoming the foundation of something extraordinary. He wasn't just lifting weights. He was lifting himself out of the life he was born into. By the time Arnold reached his late teens, weightlifting had already become more than a passion. It was a lifeline. Every rep felt like a step away from foul, from the cold floors, from the shadows of his father's disappointment. He trained obsessively, not because he wanted attention, but because he was building an escape route with his own hands. He discovered his first real gym in Graz, a bigger city an hour away. The space was dim, filled with rusty equipment and the smell of iron and sweat. But to Arnold, it was paradise. He would travel hours by bus just to train there, sometimes staying until the gym closed, then falling asleep in a corner before catching the first bus home. People whispered, "That boy is crazy. He trains too much. He'll never make anything out of this." Arnold didn't care. He knew what they didn't. This wasn't training, it was transformation. At 18, he entered his first major competition, the Junior Mr. Europe. He was nervous, inexperienced, and far from perfect. But when he stepped on stage, something clicked. The lights, the crowd, the feeling of becoming someone entirely different. It electrified him. He didn't win, but he left the stage knowing he had found his path. Still, there was one truth he couldn't escape. Austria was too small for his dreams. If he really wanted to become the best, he had to reach beyond Europe. He had to get to America. This idea felt impossible. He didn't speak English well. He had no money, no connections, and his father strongly opposed his ambitions. But every night, Arnold imagined himself walking on Venice Beach, training with the greatest bodybuilders in the world, competing under the bright lights of American stages. He visualized it with such clarity that it felt less like a dream and more like a memory waiting to happen. Opportunity came through Joe Weider, the father of bodybuilding, who saw photos of Arnold and recognized something rare. Not just physical potential, but hunger. A fire in the eyes. Joe invited him to America for training and competition. It was the moment Arnold had prayed for. Leaving Austria wasn't simple. His father refused to support him. Relatives warned him he would fail. Friends told him he was chasing something unrealistic. Yet on that day, Arnold packed a single suitcase, clothes, training journals, photos of his idols, and boarded a plane with barely enough money for food. He didn't look back. Landing in America was like stepping into another universe. The sun, the colors, the energy. Everything felt larger, louder, more alive. Venice Beach became his new home, and Gold's Gym became his sanctuary. But the reality was harsh. He was mocked for his accent. He was told his body was too big for Hollywood. People called him the Austrian Oak, half as a compliment, half as a joke. He could have broken under the weight of culture shock, loneliness, and the enormous pressure to succeed. But instead, he trained harder. He studied English every night. He took acting classes. He worked construction to survive. He competed in more contests, chasing perfection with almost inhuman determination. And slowly, the world began to notice. What no one knew was that this was only the beginning, a small spark before the explosion. Arnold wasn't just stepping into a career. He was marching toward the impossible. The rise began long before the world recognized his name. After arriving in America, Arnold trained with a discipline that bordered on obsession. He was the first one inside Gold's Gym every morning, and the last one to leave. The clang of iron became the soundtrack of his new life, a life he was rebuilding from the ground up, one rep at a time. His hard work exploded into results. In 1970, at just 23 years old, Arnold won Mr. Olympia, becoming the youngest champion in history. He dominated the stage with a physique no one had ever seen before. Massive, symmetrical, carved like a statue. But what impressed people even more was his aura. Confidence, presence, ambition. He wasn't just competing. He was ruling. For years, Arnold reigned as the face of bodybuilding, winning 7 Mr. Olympia titles and turning the sport into a global phenomenon. Magazines featured him. Commercials wanted him. Gym culture exploded. But underneath all the attention, Arnold was plotting something bigger. He wanted Hollywood. When he first walked into casting rooms, the reactions were almost comical. Producers told him his body was too distracting. Directors said no one would understand his accent. Agents told him his name alone, Schwarzenegger, was impossible to market. Some even laughed. One casting director said, "You'll never be a movie star. Look at you." Arnold didn't argue. He just trained harder, took acting classes, perfected his delivery, and waited for the right role. That role came in 1982 with Conan the Barbarian, a film that required a body like his, a presence like his, a character who didn't need to speak much, just dominate the screen. The movie became a hit. Hollywood stopped laughing. Then came The Terminator. Originally, Arnold was supposed to play the hero. But after a single conversation, director James Cameron said the words that changed everything: "You're the machine." The moment Arnold walked on screen as the relentless, emotionless Terminator, an icon was born. The accent that once made people mock him? Suddenly, it became legendary. The physique that casting directors hated? Now it defined an entire era of action cinema. Movies like Predator, Commando, Total Recall, and Terminator 2 turned him into the highest-paid action star in the world. His presence was unmatched, a combination of power, charisma, humor, and that unstoppable drive he carried from childhood. But fame didn't come without pressure. Behind the scenes, Arnold built an empire of businesses. Real estate, investments, fitness ventures. He worked non-stop, juggling films, politics, entrepreneurship, and public appearances. People saw the glamour, the red carpets, the premieres, the headlines. But few understood the exhaustion behind the smile, the weight of being larger than life, the expectations of always being strong, always being perfect. There were nights when he felt the old loneliness from Austria creeping back, the feeling of being misunderstood, isolated inside his own success. Yet he pushed through, fueled by the same fire that had carried him across continents. Then he made another leap, the kind no one expected. He entered politics. In 2003, Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor of California, proving once again that he was impossible to categorize or limit. He wasn't just a bodybuilder, not just an actor, not just a businessman. He was a force reshaping every arena he stepped into. The world admired him. Millions idolized him. He had everything: fame, wealth, influence, power. Or so it seemed. Because behind the dazzling rise and global success, the darkest chapter of his life was already forming. A storm that would shatter his image, his marriage, and force him to confront the very parts of himself he had tried to outrun for decades. For decades, Arnold Schwarzenegger lived inside a myth: the invincible man. The world saw the strength, the confidence, the unstoppable rise. But none of that protected him from the shadows that quietly followed him across every stage of his life. Even at the height of his fame, Arnold carried the weight of old wounds. The pressure to be perfect, to never show weakness, to never slip, became a cage. Directors demanded more. Politicians demanded more. The public demanded everything. And Arnold, trained since childhood to endure, kept giving, giving, and giving, until the line between ambition and self-destruction began to blur. When he became governor of California, the chaos intensified. Early mornings, endless meetings, crises, negotiations. The same man who once spent hours lifting iron now carried the weight of a state on his shoulders. But behind the polished speeches and stern leadership, his personal life was growing fragile. The truth was simple but dangerous. Arnold had built a career on discipline, but never learned how to process pain. He had learned how to push through, but not how to slow down. He had learned how to be strong, but not how to be vulnerable. And slowly, the cracks began to show. For years, his marriage to Maria Shriver, a woman from the Kennedy family, rooted in dignity and public service, was admired around the world. They were seen as the perfect balance. The powerhouse couple who conquered politics, Hollywood, and public expectation. But the more the world admired them, the more Arnold felt the pressure to maintain an image he couldn't live up to. He was juggling two lives: the public hero, and the private man haunted by the flaws he kept hidden. Inside the walls of their home, silence replaced laughter. Distance replaced intimacy. Arguments were quiet but sharp. Two people growing in different directions while pretending everything was fine. And in the middle of that growing distance, a secret formed. A secret that would one day detonate everything. Years earlier, during a period of intense work and emotional disconnect, Arnold crossed a boundary he never should have crossed. He had an affair with a woman who worked inside their home. Someone the family trusted, someone always around, someone easy to confide in during moments of exhaustion and vulnerability. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't calculated. It was a moment of weakness from a man taught to hide weakness his entire life. What followed wasn't just a mistake, it was a life-changing consequence. The woman became pregnant. The child was born. And nobody knew. For more than a decade, the truth remained buried. Arnold kept the secret close, compartmentalizing it in the only way he knew how, by locking it behind a wall of silence and discipline. But secrets have weight, and this one grew heavier with every passing year. Maria sensed something was wrong. There were moments, looks, questions, small inconsistencies that didn't add up. But Arnold denied everything. He wasn't just protecting his image. He was protecting the fragile world he had built. The children, the marriage, the legacy. But guilt lingered like a shadow. The boy was growing older, beginning to look unmistakably like Arnold. The truth was becoming harder to hide. And there came a moment, in 2011, when the secret finally reached its breaking point. The housekeeper confessed. The truth surfaced. And Maria confronted Arnold with a question that pierced through years of silence. Is it true? Arnold later described the moment like having the world collapse in a single breath. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Not in politics, not in Hollywood, but in his own home. He admitted everything. One mistake. One secret. One truth powerful enough to bring a global icon to his knees. The public didn't know yet, but his family did. And that made the fall even more devastating. This wasn't a scandal in the headlines. It was a catastrophe in the living room. The day the truth was revealed inside their home was only the beginning. What came next was the collapse of everything Arnold had spent decades building. The marriage, the trust, the public legacy. All of it began to unravel. Maria Shriver left their house that same week. Quietly, gracefully, carrying the weight of a wound no one could see but everyone would eventually know. The silence that followed was unbearable. For the first time in his life, the man who had conquered every mountain stood alone in a house that no longer felt like home. News of the scandal broke shortly after, and the world reacted with shock. Headlines exploded. Interviews replayed old moments in slow motion. Smiles, glances, speeches, searching for clues. People judged. Critics attacked. Fans were torn between disappointment and heartbreak. But what the world didn't see was the private destruction. The look on his children's faces, the pain in Maria's voice, the sudden emptiness that filled every room Arnold walked through. He said in an interview later, "I have no one to blame but myself. I created this situation. I caused this pain." For a man who prided himself on discipline, control, and power, admitting vulnerability felt like stepping into a void. He wasn't fighting an opponent. He wasn't chasing a trophy. He was confronting himself, the version of him he had spent a lifetime avoiding. Arnold had always believed in pushing through pain. As a child, he pushed through fear. As a bodybuilder, he pushed through exhaustion. As an actor, he pushed through rejection. As a politician, he pushed through criticism. But this pain wasn't something he could push through. This pain required something he had never fully learned: accountability, apology, and emotional honesty. His children needed time. Maria needed distance. Arnold needed to face the void he had created. He moved out of their home and into a small apartment. Gone were the small armies of assistants, the grand schedules, the constant noise of leadership and fame. For the first time, life slowed down, painfully, unforgivingly slow. And in that stillness, he confronted the truth. Everything he had outrun, the trauma of his father, the fear of inadequacy, the pressure to be perfect, had finally caught up with him. He began therapy. Not the kind of therapy you do for public image, but the kind that forces you to sit in silence and ask the questions you never wanted to answer. Questions like, why did I need to feel invincible? Why did I fear vulnerability? What part of me is still that scared boy on the cold floor? Arnold admitted that the hardest part wasn't the media, wasn't the public backlash. It was losing the trust of the people he loved most. He tried to repair what he could. He apologized to Maria not once, but countless times. He worked on rebuilding relationships with each of his children individually. He remained present in their lives, even when they needed distance. Slowly, painfully, the pieces began to shift. Not back into their old places, that was impossible, but into new shapes, new understandings. A family broken, but not destroyed. And in the years that followed, something unexpected happened. Arnold stopped pretending. He stopped hiding behind the armor of the strongest man alive. He opened up publicly about his mistakes, his guilt, and his failures. He talked about therapy. He talked about healing. He talked about being human. In doing so, he gave the world something more powerful than muscle, more inspiring than success, more lasting than fame. He gave them honesty. Because the truth, the one he spent years avoiding, was simple. His greatest battle was never on a stage, or in a film, or in a political office. His greatest battle was with himself. And this time, he fought not to conquer, but to change. The scandal didn't destroy him. It stripped him down to the core. And from that vulnerable place, Arnold Schwarzenegger began the most difficult transformation of his life. One not of the body, but of the heart. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic moment or a single revelation. It came slowly, quietly, through pain, through reflection, through the kind of stillness a man like Arnold had avoided his entire life. In the months after the scandal, he found himself alone more often than ever before. The silence inside his apartment felt foreign, almost hostile. It was the opposite of everything he built. No cameras, no cheering crowds, no political staffers waiting for directions. Just a man and the echo of his own choices. And yet, in that painful quiet, something began to shift. For the first time, Arnold allowed himself to look backward, not with pride, but with honesty. He confronted the childhood he ran from, the emotional walls he built, the inability to show vulnerability, the instinct to bury pain beneath ambition. Therapy forced him into uncomfortable questions. Questions he had spent a lifetime outrunning. He learned how trauma shaped his decisions, how fear of inadequacy shaped his need for control, how the discipline that made him unstoppable also made him emotionally distant. It was humbling. It was painful. But it was necessary. Slowly, he began repairing what mattered most. He reached out to each of his children individually, not to justify the past, but to be accountable for it. He listened more. He spoke less. He showed up consistently. Birthdays, dinners, milestones, without expecting forgiveness, just hoping for a chance to rebuild trust. Maria Shriver and Arnold never returned to their old life. But they built something new. Mutual respect, co-parenting, a relationship grounded in honesty rather than image. The boy he fathered outside the marriage, Joseph Barrena, grew up. Their relationship became real. built not on secrets but on presence, mentorship, and responsibility. Arnold became a part of his life openly, publicly, proudly, acknowledging the past without letting it define the future. Through this emotional reconstruction, Arnold rediscovered something he had forgotten: compassion, connection, humanity. He returned to his roots, not the cold floors of Austria, but the values he once admired: hard work, rebuilding, standing up without pretending to be invincible. He started making speeches, not about winning, but about failure, resilience, mental discipline, and rebuilding after collapse. His message shifted. It became deeper, truer. I made mistakes, big ones, but you get up, you learn, you take responsibility, you move forward. This wasn't the voice of a champion on stage. This was the voice of a man reborn. In the years that followed his public downfall, Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't chase a comeback. He chased clarity. He rebuilt his life not with the loudness of fame, but with the quiet discipline of a man determined to grow beyond his past. He returned to acting slowly, choosing roles that carried weight rather than spectacle. His performances matured, less about muscle, more about emotion. Audiences saw a different Arnold now, still powerful but human, still iconic but grounded. The armor was gone, and somehow that made him even stronger. He poured his energy into mentoring young athletes, supporting after-school fitness programs, and speaking openly about mental resilience. The man once defined by physical strength now used his voice to advocate for something far more important: inner strength. He began sharing messages he once kept hidden: the importance of discipline, the necessity of vulnerability, the value of rebuilding after failure. His speeches went viral. Millions of views, millions of young people listening to a man who had lived more than one lifetime. The same accent that once got him rejected by Hollywood became one of the most recognizable voices in motivation. He stood on stages around the world, speaking not as a governor or movie star, but as someone who had touched both the peak of success and the depth of regret. He also used his platform for causes larger than himself: environmental initiatives, children's health programs, support for veterans, disaster relief. He didn't just talk about being useful. He lived it. His relationship with his children grew stronger, shaped by honesty rather than perfection. They didn't admire him because he was flawless. They admired him because he changed. In documentaries, in interviews, in off-camera moments, one truth became clear: Arnold Schwarzenegger's legacy was no longer just about bodybuilding trophies or blockbuster films. It was about transformation, about a man who refused to be defined by his trauma, his mistakes, or his failures. A man who kept evolving, even when the world thought they already knew his story. He showed the world that success isn't a straight line, that even legends fall, that real greatness comes not from never breaking, but from learning how to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more human. The boy from Thal became a global icon, but the man he became afterward, that's the legacy people will remember. Arnold Schwarzenegger's life is a reminder that greatness is rarely born from comfort. It grows from cold floors, from silence, from the moments no one sees. His journey isn't just about strength or fame, it's about transformation, about learning that discipline without compassion breaks you, that ambition without honesty blinds you, and that the hardest battles are the ones fought within. He rose from a village shattered by war. He built a body that changed an entire sport. He conquered Hollywood when everyone said he couldn't. He governed the largest state in America. And when he lost everything that mattered, he found something even more powerful: the courage to rebuild, to apologize, to evolve. His story is not perfect, and that's what makes it real. It teaches us that success isn't the absence of failure. It's the ability to rise after falling, to grow after breaking, and to choose integrity over ego when the world is watching. Life will test you. It will expose your weaknesses. It will ask you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But it will also give you a chance again and again to rewrite your own story. So in the end, you must ask yourself, so, what's your story?